The second part of the assessment, which is called this, it should be the third stage. It is the assessment itself. This stage only commences after you have finished the statutory checks, as our previous my previous colleagues said, the 2 sessions you had. You must have finished with the medical, the DBS, all the local checks back, and then this is the time we start the assessment itself. And you must have finished also the skills to foster training. We say briefly about the skills to foster. Skills to foster is a training whereby you are introduced, you are given information about fostering. They introduce you to things that happen in foster care, the criteria, the needs of the children, how they are managed. And then it gives you a chance also to decide whether fostering is for you or not. For you to have progressed to stage 2, you must have made a decision that that is for you, and you must have met the criteria, having gone through the first 2 stages. So with the assessment itself, this stage involves gathering of information. And what does it entail? It entails making visits to your home. I'm talking about the period if it wasn't a lockdown, but now we are in a lockdown whereby we are doing everything virtually. But previously, before the lockdown, the assessment will entail visiting you at your home on a number of occasions. And then we start work through your application by gathering information about yourself, your background, your childhood, your relationships you've had. Do you have previous partners, current partners, your children? You know, it is the information about yourself and your family, because we have to decide whether you actually meet again the criteria, because it is very possible for us to stop the assessment if something comes up in the second assessment, although it is very rare. So what we do in that in that stage, what we are doing currently, we do the assessment virtually, but we must have satisfied your identity and gone through what I've already talked about. We make appointments with you, and then we start discussing about your background history. By looking at your background history, we need to know, how were you brought up? Were you yourself in a stable environment? If it wasn't stable, how did it impact on you? How have you progressed from there? We pick on a few abilities, skills, and knowledge, and then we also identify your areas of development. And then we also look at, I've talked about being parented. How did your parents parent you? How are you parenting your children if you've got your own children? Did you take from your parents? How are you managing behaviors? So we look at your parenting style, whether it is different from your parents, whether you are actually copying from them. If it was a negative one, how have you managed to progress from there? Because what we want are applicants who are able to discipline without physical punishment. Applicants who are able to provide a nurturing environment. They are able to manage behavior properly. They are able to guide and help these children thrive in care. Yes.
So, lovely. So this second assessment is looking further in depth about. Sorry, dog. I have a lot of dogs. So this second assessment looks further into the foster carer after the skills to foster training, and it's looking more at a more for personal level on their ability to foster, on how they were brought up by their parents and how they bring up their own children if they have any, and because and why exactly do you look into that?
Because we need to know that you have the ability to parent. You have the ability to provide a nurturing environment. You have the ability to promote the children's needs. You are able to provide a stable environment. Are you able to provide the continuity to these children? Are you able to promote contact with their parents? Are you able to promote their identity? Are you emotionally resilient? Are you available? We also look at your availability. Will you be available for these children? How are you going to promote their needs and make sure that they achieve?
Right. So what kind of so this second stage is gathering information about the person, and it's about deciphering the suitability of this carer and their parenting skills. So who do you ask, and who do you go to ask for, obviously, references and such, for example?
What we do, we talk to all your family members because they will be giving us feedback. We talk to your children if you've got children. We can meet up with your children as a group. We can talk to you, all of you, in one meeting first, but we'll talk to them individually and they will give us feedback. We'll also ask you to provide us with the names of people who know you very well that will be able to give references. We take 2 personal references. We can take as many, but we can take 2 of people who have known you for a very long time and are able to tell us about you, who you are, your characters, and everything. How have you parented your children? And then we also take professional references. We take references from your place of work so that they can tell us about your character. How do you work as part of a team? Because being a foster carer entails working as part of a team. You must be able to relate with others. And then we also take references. If you've got children, we take references from school because they will be able to tell us how your children are behaving. Says a lot. How are you managing? How are you working with them to help the children if they have got behavior issues? Are you working, collaboratively with them? Or you are that kind of person who is resisting a professional's involvement? Then we can also take references maybe from your neighbors as well. And then ex-partners, if you've got an ex-partner. that is also our good source of information, because they will be able to tell us about your parenting skills. Yeah.
So you look into all of them, and you do visit the whole family and everyone involved in you, or might be involved in your foster when you become a foster carer. So how many visits would you say this takes, and how long would you say the whole second part of the assessment process takes, roughly?
On average, I would say 4 months if there are no experienced difficulties along the way of assessment. If you are available, if your references are, the people you've given us as your references are available, if we are able to obtain all the information anyway that is required. Yeah, if there are no hindrances along the way, within, I can say that on average it takes 4 months. It can take less, but I would say that on average it takes 4 months.
So about 4 months. And so you said about how many visits was that?
The visits also depends, because I wouldn't say that it will be 2 or 3, but a minimum of 6. A minimum of 6. My advice would be that if you are being assessed, you've got to be very truthful, provide accurate information, because if you provide me with the information and when I go back and go through the information and I feel that this doesn't add up, then I have got to come back. You are delaying the information. And if there is something that you haven't been open about, and then when I'm about to finish the assessment, I get a reference from somewhere that is contradictory to the information you gave me, then that one also delays the information, delays the process. My advice would be very truthful. I know some people have had some negative experiences. That doesn't mean that it is going to disqualify you from the assessment. Provided you don't have any criminal conviction, you've never been cautioned about physical punishment and the rest, then I don't think that your assessment will be disqualified. But then if you don't provide us with accurate information, then that is a hindrance. Another thing I would also talk about is if your children are grown up, you've got grown up children, we also need to have access to them. So you need to provide us with the information, regardless of whether they are in UK or not in UK. We need to have access to them because they hold vital information. We will not complete the assessment without speaking to them.
So it's all about gaining information and references and such like past experiences and stuff. So I'm guessing that another important reference would be schools and such for like education.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. What would happen, let's say, for example, if your partner,
yes,
and if you had a previous partner, but you had no links to them anymore, so no children, and maybe they moved to a different country, or for example, would you still have to gather references from them, or would they not be involved in the assessment?
I think we treat each case individually. Attempts will be made to reach out to that person My question would be, especially if that ex-partner you had children with them, I would be maybe a bit concerned if you don't have contact with them. I know some people prefer not to have contact after that, but then if you've got children involved and you've not kept contact, maybe that will be a bit of an issue, and that is something that we can look into. If it was a decision of the court, then that will not be a problem. But if it was your decision, then we also have to find out why, because you are coming into a profession that varies keeping contact. These children are removed from their families or leave their families, but they need to keep in touch and they need to have contact with them, because if you haven't been able to keep contact with for your children, you've not allowed them to maintain that strong link with their father or their mother, then there will be a question of how you will be able to promote contact, especially if parents are challenging. So it is also your ability to work with the people who are difficult. How do you cope in difficult situation? That one is also being assessed, and then see whether we can proceed and help you maybe develop that ability. But we also have to look into and see why it wasn't done.
Right. So I just want to reflect. So who exactly, what part of the Banya or fostering team would be involved in doing these visits?
During the assessment, are you talking about during the assessment?
Yes, yes. Like, who would be doing the visits or the calls? Like, well, since it's lockdown, who would be doing the calls, for example?
If it is the assessment itself, it will be the social worker, but there can also be an involvement of an admin staff or a support worker who can also, if need be, if it is something to do with maybe health and safety, making a follow-up on what was pending, that one can also be involved. But your main point of contact will be your assessor. But that doesn't mean that you will not have access to the people you dealt with in the first place. Those ones will also be available to you if you need to speak to them. And you are having, especially if you are having difficulties getting hold of your assessor, they will be available there to help you chase the assessor. But it is unlikely in Banya that assessors are being chased, because our assessors usually stick to what they are doing. They keep good communication with applicants.
I just want to go back a little bit to the start. To probably this is before the second part of the assessment, the skills to foster.
Okay. Skills to foster. We tell you all about what fostering is about. And then we give you live examples. We can use referrals, maybe of current placements, but there will be genuine referrals with the genuine needs of the children. Names will not be provided of those children, but why do we use those referrals? For you to gain knowledge of the needs of the children. How do referrals look like? What are the needs of these children? How do you manage their needs? Because by you reading through the needs of these children, you will be able to tell whether I am able. Some children have got challenging behaviors. Then we ask you, it is like giving you scenarios. What would you do if a child escalates? How do you support them come back to the base level? What do you do if a child starts physical attacking you? Are you going to retaliate? So what would you do? It will also be a teaching tool. We use it as a teaching tool. We actually tell you how to respond. How do you respond? And de-escalate the situation rather than making it worse. And also knowing that these children, when they are removed from their parents, they will not. Okay, children who are in foster care. In most cases, they don't behave like the children that have never had a broken attachment. How do they behave when they feel threatened? They have come into your home. You are a stranger to them. They have gone through past experiences, negative experiences. They will be relating you with their past experiences. How do you reassure them? How do you comfort them? It is also seeing those abilities, teaching you, helping you on what you can do. That's why we do skills to foster.
So the skills to foster is a very important part of the assessment. It's giving potential foster carers and future foster carers real situations that they may have to deal with and go through, and seeing how they will react to it, and then training them how they should react to it. And then the entire assessment following that is learning about how they were treated as a child, and how they were parented, and how they are parenting if they have children of their own.
Yes, in a way, it helps them develop some skills, gain knowledge, yeah, and then be reflective also, because maybe when you attend that skills to foster, it also takes you back to your past experiences, yeah, and then you will be reflective and see your areas of development, maybe also to assess yourself whether you are emotionally resilient, whether you still need a bit of support. And that Banya can also offer that, because we have got a don't worry, it opens up, that you are closed, and you feel overwhelmed, you feel that you are emotionally, not managing. I think you can ask for that support. We'll be able to give you the support. We will not help you, we will not leave you to that, to deal with it on your own. That support will be available to you.
So it's finding out. So if you are dealt with a child that does have some negative experiences, will that affect your parenting and such? And if you need support with that, Banya will be there to help support you and train you.
Yes.
Yeah. Right. So with the skills to foster, is there a cost to that for training, or is that covered by Banya or anything?
It is covered by Banya. Skills to foster is a program that takes we usually arrange 3 days. It is not a 1-day training. It is a minimum of 3 full days, because there's a lot to cover, as you would imagine, from what is expected of you as a foster carer, to knowing the needs of the children, to knowing how do you work effectively as part of a team, to knowing how do you manage also your emotions, what is the best way of caring for these children, what do you do in a situation whereby a child is rejectful, and they bring out those feelings. How do you manage your own feelings, and how do you support this child so that they don't feel resented? Yes.
Oh, that's lovely. That's lovely, lovely, lovely. So do do any of our lovely viewers have any questions for us about the fostering assessment, or maybe the skills to foster, or anything in regards to this? Although I think we have been answering. I have been seeing the questions in the chat, and I have been answering them as we've been going along. But if there are any questions that you feel you would like to be answered, please ask away.
Okay. Maybe letting our applicants know that that the reason why we look holistically at all the information is to also identify your areas of development. Yes, we'll be identifying your abilities, knowledge, but most of the things you can develop, like skills, provided you have got, you are trainable. If you are open-minded, you are trainable. You are able to provide a stable environment. You have love for children. You are able to care for them. You have time. You are not going to you are not going to take on a child today and tomorrow you tell us that, I can't do a school run. You are able to treat them as your own. So those are some of the things that we need to consider.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. If you are watching this on replay, please do ask your questions in chat. We will try to answer every one of them, either in a comment or it will be in our next video, which will be next Tuesday, every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Or thereabouts. We try. We will be trying to answer as many questions as you can. As you have. Next one will be following the second part of the assessment. You'll probably be going to panel, and the next video will be in regards to that. So what happens with panel and how that process goes. I want to thank you all for. Oh wait. I just spotted a question in chat that I believe is quite important. If I have to stop the assessment for personal reasons, is it possible to continue, or will I have to start all over again?
It is actually possible to continue. We are very flexible. If something comes up, we've ever experienced that. If you feel at any given stage that you are unable to continue and you need to have a break, we'll respect that and then revisit it when you are ready. Yeah. And what I also, maybe in rounding up, what I also want to tell our viewers is that after gathering this information about you, we put it together in a way that captures your experiences. We talk about your areas of development in a very supportive way, because the assessment itself is our selling tool. So don't expect us to write a negative assessment. We write it in a way that brings out your skills, your abilities, because it will be the document that will be sending out to local authority when we are looking for referrals for you. And it is properly checked by we've got gatekeepers. They make sure that it is well written. So after gathering the information, that process also kicks in of going through the assessment itself. It is looked at by a different person who is independent from the assessor to make sure that the information is accurate, and will also give you a chance to read it through. So you are able to tell us that actually this is not accurate, and then we talk about it and put it right. Thank you so much.
So this is all before the panel.
Before the panel,
still.
yes,
Right.
that is before the panel.
So you would do your skills to foster, and then if you wish to continue after that, then you'll have a social worker or an assessor come to your house and assess you maybe a couple times, 5, 6, maybe more times. It will interview, get references about yourself and your family members, and then all of this will be taken to will be written up in a big file about yourself, and then it will be passed to a second assessor to double check that everything is in order, and you'll be able to read through it just to make sure there's no misinformation as well. All of this will happen before it goes to panel. Is that correct?
Yeah, the second person that looks at the form of the assessment itself after being written, the document itself is called a form F. It will be passed on to the person who will be, it is for quality assurance. They will be checking over. They will not be assessing. Their role will be checking over. And then it will be passed on to you also to read it through to make sure that your information is accurately captured.
We won't be looking specifically at the negatives, because we want you to become a foster carer. We want that.
Yes, we've all had our shortcomings, but the most important thing that is, what did you learn out of it, and how are you managing presently? Yes.
Yeah. And all of this is still going through during all this COVID and lockdown stuff as well.
Yes, we are still carrying out assessments of the applicants whose identity we had already established and whose statutory checks had already been completed. We are carrying out those assessments virtually.
Well, if there are any more questions that you have, please feel free to answer them. But I think we're running out of time, so I'm going to have to cut it short maybe. If you do have any more questions, please feel free to ask them in the comments or on the replay of the video. We will try to answer them in the next video, which is, like I said previously, the next video is going to be about going to panel, and that will be with Wendy. So please join us next week on Tuesday at 12 p.m. And we'll hope to see you there. Thank you.
Thanks so much to our viewers. Bye.